72 years old, 41 years building one of the most profitable enterprise software companies in Silicon Valley. $340 million wired into my personal accounts on the afternoon of June 14th, 2019. And today, I sit in a 600 square foot apartment in Sacramento. I take the number 38 bus to my Gamblers Anonymous meeting every Thursday evening. I count the days between my Social Security deposits like a man counting water in a drought. You think intelligence protects you from this? You think that because you read the Wall Street Journal, because you understand compound interest, because you've sat across the table from venture capitalists and not blinked once in 40 years, you think that keeps you safe? I had all of it. The pedigree, the track record, the financial literacy that most people spend their whole lives trying to acquire. And I burned every last cent of it down in 6 months. Not because I'm stupid, not because I was unlucky, because I was so utterly convinced that I was too smart for this to happen that I stopped being afraid. And that certainty, that ironclad, Stanford-educated, 4-decade validated certainty, is exactly what the disease was waiting for. So sit with me for a while. I'm not asking for your pity. I surrendered my right to that a long time ago in a casino hotel room in Atlantic City at 2 a.m, betting money that belonged to the life I had built with my family. What I am asking is that you stay, because if you have someone in your life who believes they have it all under control, or if that person is you, then you need to hear every word of what I'm about to tell you. I have nothing left but this story. Subscribe if you want to follow where it leads. Leave me a comment. Tell me you're there. Not because I care about numbers anymore. I destroyed my relationship with numbers somewhere between the 4th and 5th casino. But because somewhere out there, someone is standing at the edge of the same cliff I walked off of, and they need to hear what the bottom sounds like before they jump. I was not born wealthy. I want to make that clear because it shaped every decision I made for 5 decades, including the ones that destroyed me. I grew up in Fresno, California, the son of a plumber named Raymond and a school secretary named Dorothy. My father smelled of pipe cement and Old Spice when he came home on weekday evenings. He worked 6 days a week for 30 years without complaint. I got a scholarship to Stanford in 1971, the first person in my family to attend a 4-year university. I remember walking across that campus for the first time in September. The eucalyptus trees, the red-tiled roofs, the particular quality of Northern California afternoon light, and thinking a thought so clear it felt like a law of physics. I will never go back to being small. I made that decision at 18 and held it like a weapon for the next 50 years. I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering, spent 5 years at IBM in San Jose, learning how enterprise systems work under the hood. And in 1983, with $40,000 borrowed from my father-in-law and a 2-car garage in Palo Alto, I started Meridian Data Systems. We built inventory and supply chain software for mid-sized manufacturers. unglamorous, invisible, essential. The kind of software nobody writes profiles about, but that keeps hospital supply rooms stocked and automotive plants running on schedule. By 1995, 400 employees. By 2005, 1,200. By 2019, offices in 7 cities, contracts in 32 countries, a reputation for reliability built over 4 decades. When the acquisition closed that June afternoon and the wire transfer confirmation appeared on my phone in a glass tower conference room in downtown San Francisco, I looked down at the Bay Bridge and felt something I can only describe as invincibility. Pure, clean, total invincibility. Patricia, my wife of 44 years, was at home in Atherton. She had raised our 3 children, suffered through my 80-hour weeks, attended school plays alone while I was in Dallas or London or Tokyo. She asked me on the phone that afternoon, the first thing she said, "Are you happy?" And I said yes immediately, and in the only way I understood happiness then, as the completion of a measurable goal. I meant it. What I could not tell her, what I couldn't yet tell myself, was that the completion of the goal had left a silence inside me I didn't know how to fill. For the first time in 40 years, there was no enemy, no quarterly target, no competitor, no problem that required my specific brand of obsessive intelligence to solve. I was 70 years old. I had more money than 3 lifetimes could spend, and I had absolutely no idea who I was when there was nothing left to win. My financial advisor presented diversification strategies. My son David suggested travel. My daughter Sarah flew in from Boston and said, "Dad, you can finally just be present with us." Everyone was offering me a life I had never learned to live. 3 weeks after the deal closed, a former venture capitalist I'd known since the early 90s invited me to a private poker game in a Marin County home. High stakes, serious players, $10,000 chips, men who didn't need the money but needed the contest. I told Patricia I had a business dinner. I won $47,000 that night and drove home on the 101, feeling more alive than I had in years. That feeling was the first brick that built my ruin. The problem was not poker. Poker just opened the door I didn't know was there. What came through that door was a hunger I had no name for, a compulsion dressed up as competence. A month after the Marin game, I flew to Las Vegas for a weekend of supposed decompression. I stayed at the Wynn, 55th floor, room service every night. The steakhouse where one entree cost more than my father earned in a week. I belonged there. That was the story I told myself. The first night I sat at a high-limit slot machine. I know how that sounds. I understand precisely how absurd it sounds for a man who built algorithms, who ran probabilistic models in business negotiations, who could calculate risk-adjusted returns in casual conversation. But that's the trap. It wasn't that I didn't understand the mathematical odds. It's that my brain, the same brain that had always made me the exception, had decided those odds didn't apply to me specifically. I put in $500, won $2,100, put in another $500, won nothing, put in $1,000, won $4,600. I walked away that first session up $3,800 and felt I had discovered something the casino didn't want me to know. By month 2, I was flying to Las Vegas twice a month, players' cards at 4 properties, lines of credit at 3 casinos. I opened a separate bank account at a branch 40 minutes from home, where no teller would recognize me. Patricia thought I was meeting with technology consultants, exploring a new advisory venture. I told her that on a Tuesday afternoon, in our kitchen in Atherton, looking directly into her eyes, without flinching. She believed me. Why would she not? I had given her 44 years of nothing but truth about business. The losses began to accelerate in ways I kept reframing with the same rational skills I had used to run a billion-dollar operation. Down 200,000, but I won 180 last week, net manageable. Down 600,000. I have a system now, a discipline, a methodology. Down 1.2 million. One good session will reset everything. That is the arithmetic of addiction, and it runs on the same engine as entrepreneurship. The belief that this iteration, this adjustment, this next decision will be the one that turns the curve. I started going to Atlantic City as well, so my Las Vegas records wouldn't accumulate too conspicuously in any single place. I built an architecture of deception so intricate that I sometimes believed it myself. I missed my granddaughter Emma's school play in April. She was 8 years old and had a speaking part. 3 full lines, Patricia told me later. I was on the floor of the Borgata in Atlantic City, surrounded by the sound of machines and the recycled cold air that smells like nothing in nature, watching my phone screen light up with Patricia's texts, and then going dark again when I didn't answer. She sent me the video of the play when I finally surfaced. I watched it from a casino bathroom with bad lighting, a paper towel dispenser rattling every time the HVAC kicked on. I felt nothing watching it, except the pull to get back to the table. That was the moment I should have recognized what I had become. I see it now with a clarity that is almost unbearable to sustain. The collapse came in the 3rd week of October, 6 months and 8 days after the Marin game. Patricia found the bank statement in the filing cabinet while looking for the car registration. One account, 93 days of transactions, withdrawals and deposits so large and so rhythmic they told the story without any interpretation needed. She sat at the kitchen table with that statement in her hands for nearly 2 hours before I came downstairs. I remember the quality of the silence, the afternoon light on the kitchen tile. She looked up at me and said, in a voice completely emptied of emotion, "How much is gone?" I told her the number. I watched her face do something I don't have language for. Not anger. I had braced for anger. Not tears. Something worse. The recognition that the person sitting across from her was not the man she had thought she knew. That the house, the retirement, the security she had earned alongside me, all of it had been built on ground that dissolved while she was sleeping. My son David drove down from San Francisco that evening. He stood in the living room of the house we were already 3 months from losing and looked at me the way a child looks at a parent who has failed them in a way they cannot fully name. With grief, not contempt, pure, quiet grief. He kept saying, "I don't understand, Dad. I don't understand." And I sat with my hands on my knees and offered him nothing, because there is no explanation that makes sense to someone who has not lived inside the compulsion. Patricia left the following Monday. She took the photo albums, her mother's pearl earrings, the small watercolor she had bought on our honeymoon in Carmel in 1975, a painting of the beach at Point Lobos that had hung in every house we lived in for 44 years. She left the golf trophies. She left everything that was mine alone. She moved to Boston to be near our daughter Sarah. She did not file for divorce immediately. She was too exhausted for process. But the marriage was over in every substance that mattered. The house went into foreclosure in February. A court-ordered settlement required participation in a gambling addiction program. The final accounting of losses came to approximately $280 million. Direct gambling losses, early withdrawal penalties, taxes triggered by rapid liquidations, and catastrophically bad investments made in casino hotel rooms between 2 and 4 in the morning, trying to reverse the tide through other channels. I am 72 years old. My Social Security check is $1,847 a month. I take the bus. I shop at Grocery Outlet because the prices are honest and no one there knows who I used to be. I go to my Thursday meetings and sit in a circle with people who lost things to this disease. Smaller numbers than mine, but the same disease. The same empty morning after. The same shame that sits in the body like weather that won't change. I do not share my numbers in the group. The zeros are different, but the disease is identical, and the loneliness at the center is exactly the same across every amount lost. The object I keep on my kitchen table is a pawn ticket, not the item itself. I cannot afford to reclaim it, just the ticket. It is for my father's watch, a Hamilton he placed in my hand the morning I walked across the stage at Stanford's graduation in 1974. He flew in from Fresno on a bus with my mother. He wore a suit he had dry cleaned for the occasion. He pressed the watch into my hand outside the auditorium and said, "Your grandfather wore this to his naturalization ceremony. Now it's yours." He died in 1998. I pawned it for $180 in April to cover a rent gap. That is what $340 million looks like at the terminus of this road. Patricia and I speak occasionally. She is not healed, and I do not ask her to be. David does not call. Sarah sends careful cards at Christmas and my birthday, the kind you write when you still love someone but cannot yet trust them. My 7 grandchildren are growing up in households where Pop-Pop is an absence nobody explains in full. They are growing up without the Sunday dinners and the camping trips and the baseball games I had planned to fill my retirement with. All the things I chose instead to sacrifice night after night on a casino floor. Those years do not come back. I know that now with the full weight of someone who has nothing left to protect himself from knowing it. I tell this story not because it repairs anything. Nothing is repaired. But this voice and this moment and you, whoever you are, on the other side of this, are what I have left. And I will not waste those too. The meetings helped more than I expected. There is something clarifying about sitting in a circle of people who understand that the addiction is not about money. It was never about money. It was about the feeling, the specific electrical sensation of being at risk and making a decision in real time. For someone who ran a company for 40 years, that sensation was oxygen. And when the company was gone, I found the sensation somewhere else, in the worst possible place. And I followed it all the way down. My recovery counselor says I had the profile of a high-functioning, late-onset addict. Someone who arrives at the addiction after achieving a degree of success that makes them feel immune. She says it's more common than people think among executives and professionals who retire without a transition plan. I tell her that's an interesting data point and that it doesn't make me feel better. She says it's not meant to. That's why I like her. If you are in that world, if you are someone who has built something, who has won something, who believes their discipline and intelligence make them impervious to this kind of collapse, I am the thing you become when that belief is wrong.